Hello, everybody. It is Lark,
And Kimberly,
and this is auto asphyxiation. I kind of did that in a reverse order this time, but what can we say? Today, we're talking about feminist urbanism and anti-fascism, and kind of like a connection because we feel like feminism is anti-fascist. I'm going to actually start with Ewa Majewska. She's a Polish feminist, and she's actually written this book about counter publics. And I kind of have to get into it more because I haven't read the book. But counterpublics are a subset of publics that stand in conscientious opposition to a dominant ideology and strategically subvert. And so we kind of like wonder, why don't we see like feminism within anti-fascism? So I'm going to kind of quote from an interview she did in a German publication. The inability to locate feminism at the core of anti-fascism today has several reasons. One of them is ignorance. I think that people don't know that historically fascists have always been anti-feminist. They're building their notion of masculinity based on virility, strength, power, heroism, self-sacrificing heroism. Therefore, femininity has always been not only the weak, but also which refuses sacrifice because she has, for instance, others to take care of. This has historically always been very present in fascism. If there is any heroism requested from women in fascist doctrine, is that of giving birth, no matter what. I quote Jarosz Kaczynski here, the leader of the Polish right-wing party PIS. No matter what, I must give birth. Hence, we can even talk of the symmetry of heroism, the militant one for the men and the reproductive one for the women, as an intrinsic part of fascist doctrine. And I think that like urbanism and just what urbanism is inherently anti-fascist, because this, even the whole idea of the woman flaneur that's just going out and just having fun and drinking coffee and having brunch, like, how dare you? Why aren't you taking care of your kids? And I mean, I think this is kind of like the public space, the urbanism. We think about inclusivity and exclusivity. And like, if we had true urbanism, like, I feel like in a way in New York, we don't have true urbanism, but if we had true urbanism where women could actually have access, or I wouldn't say like non-cisgender men could have access to the public space and to labor and to things like that, we would actually have a really we would have a society that would be kind of the antithesis of authoritarianism, antithesis of fascism, the antithesis, because it's kind of like we have a public space that's inclusive, and it has to be diverse. I mean, what are your thoughts on that, Kimberly?
oh no, I agree with you, and I think that anti-fascism is inherently feminist, and vice versa. It has to be because fascism seeks to force us into narrow gender roles, and exploit the ability of women to give birth, exploit the ability of men to be strong and the quote unquote hero and the provider. And I think to your what you said about New York City, I think that you are right. I think it's not necessarily feminist urbanist in the ideal that like we really think of. I think that a feminist urbanism environment seeks to disrupt that exclusionary environment. It provides for, it cares for everybody, meaning it's accessible to all disabled people. It's secure for people to leave their home, for even children to leave their home. And it is focused on the people that actually live and work in the environment instead of the people that just commute there or visit there. Because I feel very much like in the New York City metro area, a lot of New York is catered to people that are commuting there or going to visit.
Or just the people who have like the most money. We don't have, and here's the thing, we think about Manhattan, we think about even Brooklyn, and who was able to live there, who's able to afford to live there. if you there are people who are single cisgender men who can live there by themselves. But the thing is, this is, and here's the thing, it's not even bad to have to live with other people. That's fine, being able to live with other people. It's just that it's not about, it should be, you should be able to thrive. And you know, if you have more than, if you're living with roommates, you should be able to thrive. You shouldn't be starving to death. You shouldn't be hungry. You shouldn't be having to move like every 6 months. So the issue I have with urbanism that is, I think, not authentic and not, I want to say, not real. I mean, because the thing is that if I can't afford to live there solely because I'm not a man, and I view it that way, if I have all the credentials that a man has, but I make so much less money that I can't live in an area, then that area is oppressive. That area is saying, I don't want diversity there. This area is saying, I want authoritarianism. I want to exclude people. I want to oppress people. I want to set it up so that the only way, if you're a woman, if you live there, is if you are a mother to the children of a man with means, or the nanny of a man, of a person with means. And this is a real problem. I think that, you know, even that here's the thing, even people who are women, um, who do live in New York, they can only live there because of their fathers or their husbands. You know, their fathers or their husbands, people who they divorced. You know, it's kind of like, even when you have like, oh well, this woman might, it's, oh, because your father is paying for things, and this is bad. This is not like this is not me critiquing or saying that it's wrong for this person to be there and having their parents like subsidize them, but we have to talk about the fact that if you are not a middle class cisgendered man, you can't afford to live in New York just because they won't pay you. Regards to, they won't hire you to do the jobs that they have, the certain group demographic of people have, and the jobs they will hire you for literally won't pay enough. I have remembered being offered, in Manhattan, the most I've been offered for a job has been $50,000 a year. Kimberly laughing. Kimberly laughing because that's hilarious.
That is, I'm like, that is like, and that was what I made as a Starbucks store manager. Like, right, that was like right before I left, and I left Starbucks in 2009.
Yeah, and I'm saying this is, I mean, just so you guys don't feel badly for me, I do still do like consulting work in Los Angeles. I have to, because in New York, clearly women aren't supposed to work because you cannot get paid any money to live. If I weren't married, I don't really know how I would be surviving right now. People are kind of like, you know, I don't know if, you know, I think some people don't want to say that because they don't want, it's embarrassing. I'm not embarrassed. I'm not embarrassed about the fact that you know that like sexism and racism has prevented me from being able to support myself in this city by myself. This is because the thing is, this is that if we don't talk about these kind of matters, we can't make it better. But the thing is that, you know, what we're talking about really right now is going back to fascism. But the thing is that fascism has a path. And part of fascism is being able to humanize people. So part of fascism is racism and sexism. So if you dehumanize people, which you kind of go, well, these people, they don't, you know, they are tools in order to support the real work of the patriarchy, that is part of fascism. So the thing is that like sexism and racism are part of fascism. And I'm talking a lot, so I'm gonna allow you to like respond.
No, fascism does have a very clear path, and fascism also seeks to instill fear. Um, and it does that through dehumanizing people. And it does that also through making cities like these vast expanses of murder and crime and just lawlessness constantly. And who lives in cities? Who it's the same people who the fascists dehumanize.
And that's the thing. It's like we have this weird way of describing cities. We're kind of like, oh, because we call cities, well, we call them urban, like urbanism, and urbanism is often a word, a euphemism for black. And so we kind of talk about urbanism and we talk about blackness, even though urbanism is a geography term, but it kind of goes, urbanism is bad. We don't want to do urbanism because then we'll have like, we have like, race mixing. We have women doing what they want to do. We have transgender people. And then if they do want urbanism, if they kind of tout it, they kind of have this symbol, like they like brutalism. They like it so you have to drive. They make it so it's like you can't take public transit. You can't afford to live there. You could only take this bus there, and it's going to be a horrible trip. You're going to take a bus there. You're going to get there in the morning at 6 o'clock, and you need to be out of the city by nightfall because we don't want you there. And if
It's
you
not
are,
safe for you there.
it's not safe for you there. In either way, but also too, I mean, where I live, like, I like in New Jersey, I like a lot of men will go into New York every day to Manhattan, and their wives never go into Manhattan. Like literally, they don't go to Manhattan. They're afraid. There are husbands that are paying for their houses, paying for mortgages, paying for private school, paying for summer camp, paying for college tuition. But this place is so scary you can't go there. This place that's essentially providing you with a life in suburban New Jersey so that you can go and like essentially, do all these things for your children, and pay for this kind of lifestyle that I call it like it seems like, oh, this is great, but it's almost like a prison. Like it's like, oh, okay, but you can't leave though. You can't leave because it's dangerous for you to go out to New York. You could get killed. You could get murdered. You can get, and I mean, and it's weird how we get, if we had true urbanism in the New York metro area, where it was actually not only like culturally diverse, but gender diverse and also socioeconomically diverse. Like you have a person who's making minimum wage and a person that is rich living in the same building, because it's kind of like, oh, that guy, the guy who has coffee, he can afford to live in the building because maybe it's like, on the bottom floor or something like that, they have like singles, and the guy who's the top, he's doing living in a penthouse. So it's kind of like, I don't know, I just think about when fascists do want to be in an urban space and they make these monuments to themselves. Like you think about Trump Tower and all that kind of.
And all the gaudy gold all over Trump Tower, it doesn't even like fit in with a lot of the Art Deco design of the city, which is really like very kind of brutalist in nature as it is. And I was reading about a mental health center in California. It's called the Ohana Center for Mental Health, and it is, when they designed it, of course it's a private mental health facility and not some corporate conglomerate, but it was designed with trauma informed design. So it has no sharp corners. It has windows all over the place. There's not a single place inside where you can't see outside. It has low level lighting. It has there's no loud noises. There's no there's they use different kinds of alarm systems rather than like the very like loud and ones that kind of make you jump out of your skin. And I think about like how That's great. It's a mental health center. Obviously, mental health centers need more trauma informed design. But wouldn't it be great if, like, our cities had a little bit more humanity to them?
No, definitely. We definitely need like more humanity. I mean, I think about like, care infrastructure. And I think a lot of times we think about care infrastructure, we kind of limit it to like childcare. We're not just talking about childcare. We're talking about like, having health be accessible. Like in regards to like, why don't we have like health centers in apartment buildings? Or like, think about ways that we can make, seniors and people who are disabled feel more comfortable. Like, why do we have so many seniors and disabled people out in the middle of nowhere? Why can't they be in our metropolitan spaces? So, because not only for them, but also for us, so that we can learn how to do all this really cool like stuff with cool from we because we call it institutional knowledge. I mean, the thing is that we think about care infrastructure and we think about women, but the thing is that men should understand that care infrastructure is something they should be part of. Think about the men that get older and die alone. I think about women. When women kind of get like around 70 or 80, a lot of them do kind of go, let me move to Manhattan, let me move to Santa Monica. But guys, when they get like 80, they want to be out in the middle of nowhere. I mean, do they feel like, oh, now that I'm old, I don't matter anymore? And I
I
wonder, is that how they feel?
I think that's absolutely part of it. And I think that's part of patriarchy instilling in men constantly that they're a provider, they're a provider, they're a provider. So when they stop being a provider, when they retire, their wife passes away, their children are grown, they don't have anybody to provide for anymore. They just have themselves. And I think they feel like a burden on people. So they self isolate as a result of it.
Yeah, I mean, I now that I'm getting older, I'm seeing that. I'm seeing in real time how men, once they've stopped working, once they've stopped contributing, I guess, to capitalism, how they feel as if, oh, I'm no longer needed. So I'm just going to go out to the desert or go out to some whatever in the middle of nowhere and then just die. And the thing is that, wow, think about how deadly that is for, here's the thing, we probably need grandpa. He's got some good stories. We would like to know about more things that are going. You were more than just the person that like paid for stuff. um
Absolutely. And I saw, I think it was in Denmark, I saw that they were offering university students free rent to live in a residential facility for elderly people. And as part of the free rental agreement, they had to volunteer like 20 hours a week with the elderly people, like serving meals or what have you. And it turned out that most of the university students spent more than 20 hours a week. And even after they graduated, they developed lifelong friendships with these people. They learned skills from them, they heard stories from them, and both parties really benefited from it.
and I think this is something that's really important. And I think it's like, even if and here's the thing, it shouldn't have to be that if you're a senior or you're an older person that you have to have something wrong with you necessarily. It could just be you're just old. Like I mean, yes, if there's a it's issue, yes, we want to have you also in a metro area. But also, if you're just 75, you're just a 75-year-old dude, and your wife has died. We want you in Manhattan. We want you in LA. We want to like hear about things that you're doing. This whole like we throw people away once they're no longer of use to a factory or a company or a law firm or whatever. It's unnecessary. And I think this is also part of fascism. Fascism is ageist, it's sexist, it's racist, it's nationalist. It's all of these things.
Your
And
body can't be used to make profit anymore.
yeah, exactly. And I think we when we think about fascism, we just feel like, we don't realize that, what, there's a bunch of baby boomers that are going to be alive still, and they're going to be older guys, and they're going to not be part of if fascism. Well, you know what? I'm not going to say that. when we're in defeat fascism, but they are looking at seniors, they're looking at elderly people as people who are like, oh, we don't need these people. They're not important. They could just die. When we think about like cutting Medicaid, we're thinking about cutting all of this health insurance. These are people who are going to, here's the thing. It's weird that once you hit 65, your privilege, whether it be gender or race, disappears. You become a marginalized person, a person that's
Yeah.
never been marginalized. If you're a white man, you've never been marginalized, you've never experienced that, you become 65, all of a sudden you become a marginalized person.
Your persona non grata.
Exactly. And I think that this is something that, we have to talk about in regards to like fascism, like what happens to seniors, what happens to people who are seniors and disabled people. But I also think about things like our government. I think about in New York, we have ranked choice voting now, which is a big deal. Like, and also too, we can do like participatory governance, things like that, where we can kind of like make decisions about what's going to happen, which is going to weaken fascism if we have participatory government. But the thing is that because here's the thing, in more urban cities, we talk to each other more. We're more on the train. We're more going to have a conversation. If you're in the suburbs or you're in a rural area, you drive to work and you drive home, and a lot of times you don't talk to anybody. So you don't have to have that conversation. Of course, the internet's making it so you do kind of have those conversations, but in these urban physical spaces, you can kind of like, oh, we should do something about this. I mean, here's the thing, even though I did kind of make commentary about New York, I still feel that it's easier to get things done here than in more rural places or more suburban places. Um, but also, too, another thing I think we don't think about is that the gender roles are so strict under fascism, and if we injected feminist urbanism or feminism into urbanism, we could literally, I think, in a way, kind of like what do you call it? Um, when you give someone a shot and then they don't catch a disease.
We
I
could inoculate.
Yes, that's what it's called. Inoculate urbanism from fascism, because it's already feminist, and so it's not allowing for these gender roles, which is really an important part of fascism. You see with Elon Musk, you see with Trump, their obsession with people having children, their obsession with women being essentially incubators. Think about that horrible case in Georgia. It's Georgia, right? It's Georgia
Yeah.
that they have this woman. Essentially, she's brain dead, but they have her alive because she's pregnant. And so they're going to force her to have a baby. That
And
is, go ahead.
the baby is also expected to have significant disabilities. Like, if the baby survives birth, it's going to need a lifetime of extraordinarily expensive medical care.
Exactly. So this is just, and I mean, I just think about that, and I think about things like sustainability and solidarity and working together. I mean, if we have cooperatives, we have environmental green planning. These are all parts of like feminism, and I think that these are all things that can support us in creating a society that is inoculated against fascism, inoculated against racism, inoculated against, of course, sexism. If we're doing feminist urbanism, of course. But I feel that a lot of times people think that feminist urbanism is just about gender, but it's not just about gender. It's a political lens that challenges the patriarchy, and the patriarchy is not necessarily just about men. It's about capitalism. It's about oppression. It's about not care about the bottom line, about making profit. It's not about all this other stuff. And I think that, no, let's go ahead.
It's not about humanity.
Exactly. And I think that that's the thing about feminism is that, like feminist urbanism, is that it takes into account, it takes nature, it takes children, it takes seniors, it takes disabled people, it's looking at the earth, it's looking at everything, not just looking at, okay, how can I make the most money and oppress the most people so that I can be in control and have the most power possible.
I think that, I think, and we've talked about it before too, that in the United States specifically, feminism gets a bad rap as being, well, the women are going to take power. And people don't realize that feminism is, as an ideology, is about intersectionality all across the board. Everybody's included.
Exactly. I mean, I think this is something that a lot, one of the challenges that we have, I think a lot, is that when people think of feminism, they go, "Oh, you mean like, oh, like the girl boss thing," and that. And I'll tell you something. If you notice something, they don't call themselves feminist. They will, if they will, they might use the term feminist if someone like me is around and they want to like make sure that I am quiet and they don't want me to say anything. Um, they will use that term, but really, they don't call themselves feminists. They're very much like, oh, we're women centric. We're for women. We're about girl power. We're about being a girl, being a woman that is strong. Not so much about feminism. They actually stay away from from the word feminist. And that's something I always kind of like let people know, because it's like, they go like, we feminist urbanism just uses like a feminist lens to construct an intentional community that allows for all genders, not just women, to access the instruments to create a life of their dreams. So feminist urbanism believes that your income should not dictate where you live, and your gender should not dictate your income. Feminist urbanism is all about the utility of cooperation and collective efforts. It harnesses people-centric metrics rather than market-centric metrics to effectuate new relationships. So this is just like, I think that, feminism it's a movement to end sexism, exploitation, and oppression. That's bell hooks. So I'm just going to say that. That's not me. But I think that this is something that's really important, because I think on YouTube, someone asked me, so what does this have to do with men? And I'm just like, what does sexism have to do with men? Like, sexism is also, patriarchy is also oppressing you, because if you're not part of the 1%, the only person you can rule over is your wife and your kids. Wow. So now you get to like rule over a 5'3" woman and 5-year-olds. Wow. Is this the life that you dreamed of? And rather than having a partner and having a family, you get to rule over like 5-year-olds and a little woman.
Yeah.
Was that really the goal? I don't think it was. I don't think that was what you were. I don't think that's what you signed up for. So I think the whole thing is that I think a lot of men are for the patriarchy because they imagine themselves like they're Trump. You're not Trump. That's you know
Yeah.
where. Go
They're
ahead.
all temporarily inconvenienced millionaires. It's when I get rich, when I hit the lottery, when I get my power, the power that I'm due because I'm a man, and I'm due that by the universe.
And you're not going to get that power. You're never getting it, because it's almost like the whole, they always use Lucy as the whole kick the football, but actually it's Richmond. It's a guy's Monopoly Man guy. He has a little ball. Like, yeah, eventually you're gonna kick it. Like, yeah, it's gonna be for you. I'm gonna allow you to kick the ball. You're never gonna get that ball. Never. You're never gonna be that dude. You're never gonna rule over anybody. You're just, if you continue to essentially essentially kind of embrace this idea of like the patriarchy, embrace this idea of, oh, this is urbanism is gender neutral. It should be gender neutral, but it's not. And so until you decide to make a choice, we're going to continue to have this kind of urbanism that doesn't look like Tokyo, it doesn't look like Paris, but it looks just like it looks like New York. New York is fine. I like New York, but we could be doing better. And this could be in other places. This could be all over. This could be Chicago. It could be Los Angeles. This could be San Francisco. And it could be something that's diverse and like beautiful and like artistic. And it's not right now.
Let's talk about the fact that like most European and Asian cities, like your big, like the big places that you think of, China, Japan, France, Germany, all of those places, it's safe for a woman to walk down the street at night by herself.
And they can afford to live there. There are
Yes.
like places that are in these areas that allow single women to be able to afford to live in the same kind of lifestyle as a man. And that is something that I think is unique, and people kind of act like it's not a unique in the United States, where women with advanced degrees live a vastly different life than men with advanced degrees. And and here's the thing: they kind of like in New York, they go, "Oh yeah, blah blah blah." Well, you women with degrees, so if they're the head of a nonprofit, they'll make $100,000. Now, look, I understand that in like Iowa or something like that, $100,000 is a lot of money, but it's really not, especially if men are making $500,000. If
Yeah.
men from top colleges with graduate degrees are making $500,000, this is not like a whole violent thing, like oh, so sad, so badly for women who are making $100,000 a year. But here's the thing: in New York, you can't live on $100,000 a year. You're not gonna be able to make it with that. You can barely live in New Jersey on that. And you're like, what? Yes, you could barely live in New Jersey on $100,000 a year. And if you have kids,
Forget it.
you can forget it. You just can't. And so that's the whole thing. We have this situation where your gender, now, okay, your race, your class, and your gender will make your life go considerably different. I put it this way: right now, where we are in our society, time, in our time period, if you're a woman and you want to have you have to be married. And I don't want to say that's horrible. That sounds horrible. I don't want to say that. But the thing is that we don't make enough money to live. There are the jobs that they're not paying us enough to live.
When my husband was out of work because of an injury, a work injury that he suffered, I worked about 80 to 85 hours per week to be able to afford to live. Because on just my regular nursing salary, we would not be able to pay rent, eat, everything.
And this is like I said, this is reality. And keep in mind, this is what there are people out there who are living here who aren't married, who have kids, who are doing all stuff. People are like, oh, well, they're getting extra stuff. They're not getting that much extra. They're not getting that much extra. It is not it's not a fun life. It really, really, really is not. And gender can make your life just go. Um, if you take off from work when you have kids and then you try to go back, the vast majority of the women that I live around do not have full-time employment, and they've been looking for work. They can't find it because they've been out of work to raise their children, and they try to go back. Their degrees are too fancy for the jobs that are available. And I know people are like, well, I don't feel sorry for you for that, but that shouldn't be the case. Like what if you're in an abusive relationship? You can't even leave. You got to sit there and just take it because you need to have your rent paid and you need your children to be taken care of. And people don't really want to have this conversation because we want to act like this is not a thing, like that doesn't happen anymore. It literally does actually happen.
It happens all the time. Most of the nurses that I work with and CNAs that I work with if they have children, they have two or three jobs. And I've worked with so many women that are well past retirement age that are still working a full schedule, or they're working two double shifts in a row, so 32 hours in 2 days, so that they can have the remaining time off so that they can take care of their grandchildren. Like,
unbelievable. And I'm saying this is what that kind of stuff lays the groundwork for fascism, racism, oppression, and all this stuff. And the thing is that, within urbanism, within planning, within all of these things, we need to like inject feminism into all of it. Because if not, this is not something that we can continue. This is not a path we can continue on. And men can't continue on either. They cannot continue on this path because unless you are an Ivy League graduate from descended from the Mayflower, which most people are not, you are about to be mincemeat in this new economy. And with that, do you have anything else to say, Kimberly?
I do not, except to please dispel your ideology about feminism. It is about humanity, and it is an effective and easy tool in our toolbox to fight against fascism.
That's right. It's an easy tool, and if you subscribe to our podcast, you can learn all about this easy tool that you can use in order to fight fascism and just to have a better life. And this is for all genders, all cultures from all over the world. All right, and with that, we would like to say, have a good evening or good morning, depending on what time you're listening to this podcast. Like,